big thing this week that we've talked to our players about is, hey, we got to take ownership of what happened up there in South Bend. Make no excuses. Got to learn from it. There's a lot of lessons to be learned there. Got to get better, and then we got to move on. And that's really what we've been doing here these last couple days. And I think for us, now that we get into Wednesday's practice tomorrow, it's really about FAU and executing the game plan and get ready for a new opportunity. I have a lot of respect for Coach Taggart and Coach Levitt and what they did during their time here as a coach at USF. And I definitely know and believe that they have a very athletic football team. I think if you see the team they're inheriting coming off a conference championship and beating a really good SMU team last year in their last game that they played. So we got a big challenge. Got a lot of respect for their players, their coaching staff, and like every week, our focus should be on ourselves. And we got a lot of things we got to clean up and improve on. And still early in the season, and so this is a very important week for us to make those improvements. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Do you still expect to have a quarterback by the Cincinnati game? And is Cade Ford still in this stuff?
Yeah. Whenever Cade is allowed to come back, he will be given an opportunity to play, along with Contravis Marsh. Contravis is a talented freshman, very strong arm, who's really been improving in practice. So those two young men will get opportunities at some point, and then we need Jordan and Noah to continue to work and continue to improve. It is still my goal that whenever we get ready for Cincinnati, that we have one quarterback that we're going to go with and not be rotating every other series. That doesn't mean that when we get to Cincinnati that we're going to have our quarterback locked in for the season. It just means that we're going to now treat them as the starter and let them play the game unless it just got to a point where we really had to make a move. The plan would be to not alternate quarterbacks once we get to conference play. So that still is the plan.
Coach, you made a statement after the game I thought was very prophetic. All this proved is we're not a playoff caliber team. You and 120 others. How did that resonate with your players?
Yeah, I mean, we know. I knew before going up there when I turned on the tape. I've played Notre Dame twice, maybe in the last 5 years, and I could tell when I turned on the tape this was going to be their best team that Coach Kelly has had. So I knew it was going to be a big challenge. So the message to our players is, hey, our season wasn't built on game 2 at Notre Dame, right? We know it's going to be a process. We wanted to play better, and we should have played better than we did. And but at the end of the day, all of our goals are still on the table, and all it means is that we're not in the top 4, top 5 teams in the country, like I believe that Notre Dame is right now.
Coach, you should be very familiar with the offense you're going to face Saturday. It's high octane, high speed, but you're young with the reps. Is that an advantage?
I think the majority of us are running that offense. I don't think that it's a major advantage. The fact that we want to do the same thing. I think the familiarity with the concepts and those type of things. There's definitely some advantages to that. But Coach Tigers always did a good job with his offense, and I know he'll have those guys at FAU ready to play.
With some guys on the offensive line out, you've really got a good chance to evaluate some of the other guys like Jonathan and Dustin Hall. How have you evaluated those guys, and what have they looked like?
That was probably the silver lining from the game this past weekend, was when we turned on the video. I felt like our offensive line probably played the best out of all the position groups in the game. And, they gave us time and protected well. I think we gave up one sack was on the offensive line and one was on the quarterback. But it's been tough, obviously, with having guys out, and we still, work through that. But I think at the end of the day, when we do get the guys that were returning starters back, then we're going to have 8 or 9 guys that we feel like can help us and have had experience in games, and also potentially unfortunately a little bit of herd immunity among the O-line to know that we're going to have for the rest of the year. So out of all the position groups right now, I'm probably the most pleased with where our offensive line is, and we still don't have everybody back there yet. So that is a reason for optimism with that group.
I know you didn't watch anything from a year ago, but when you look at the stats and see how low they were on the sacks given up chart, does that surprise you at all to see the progress they've made?
Obviously I heard a little bit of that, but since I've been here, there's good leadership within that group. Donovan Jennings, Brad Cecil, Beach Harris, those guys have a lot of pride. I think Michael Wiggs is a senior, has really played well. There were some really nice pictures of him in this last game, one-on-one, blocking his guy for about 4 or 5 seconds. So he's done a good job. Josh Blanchard is a guy that has matured as a player and has a lot of talent. And then, we got great news on Friday, whenever we landed in South Bend, that DeMontre Jacobs, his waiver passed and cleared. He's a very talented offensive tackle as well. And so, I'm not surprised at all that those guys are playing well and that we see them as one of the best groups within our team.
If you're not able to play Saturday, how does that affect the quarterback situation? Stuff, Cincinnati have one guy.
Yeah. I hadn't even thought about that, to be honest, because we're focused on playing. Obviously, it's not a guarantee with everything on any game this year. We have to make that decision whenever that time comes. If at some point they tell us that we're not going to play, then obviously we'd shift our mind to Cincinnati getting ready there. But we're not at that point yet, and I guess we would make that decision if and when we got to that point.
Jeff, what did the tape show you about your quarterback play Saturday?
Overall, just too inconsistent. It's a big challenge. They weren't the only ones that weren't as consistent as we needed to be. I think as a team, when you don't execute, you don't have success. And then when you don't execute it against a top 5 team, then it's magnified times 10. And so, just overall, the biggest thing is, it's not just the quarterbacks. I mean, to me, the two positions that are underperforming are quarterback and wide receiver. And we have talent at both of those positions, and we as coaches got to get more out of them. We have the chance, and I truly believe that we have the potential to be explosive in our passing game, and that's the challenge right now. But it was a little bit of them, a little bit of the wideouts not being where they're supposed to be, and just overall too inconsistent in our passing game.
Jeff, one of those guys that can help you with explosiveness is Bryce Miller. What impression has he made on you as a figure from NAIA to a starter at FBS, virtually unheard of?
Yeah, Bryce is a very consistent player. I would have wished that we could have gotten the ball a little bit more, but he's been very consistent every day in practice and what we've asked him to do. There's a lot of things that he does that reminds me of Hunter Renfro, his play last night for the Raiders. Just with his change of direction, his route running, consistency catching the ball. There's a lot of similarities there, and I think his best football is ahead of him.
Coach, the hardest position is the offensive line. You've been facing one of them now. Is that going to help you down the road when you've got maybe 9 or 10 guys that have started?
Yeah, it will. Like I said, it's not a lot of fun going into some of these early games when one position you thought you had 4 starters coming back, and then you go out there the first game and you got 1. That's not a lot of fun at the time, but it pays off down the road. And now we got some good decisions to make as some of these starters start coming back. Because a guy like Dustin Hall, I didn't mention him. He's really played well at center for the first 2 weeks, and has kind of established himself as a guy that could potentially be a starter for us. So I like that now we have some true competition within that offensive line room. And in a year of COVID, we're going to need all those guys as it goes. And I think a lot of credit also needs to go to Coach Mowbridge, our offensive line coach. He's done an outstanding job with that group. Very great teacher, has a lot of energy, and has a positive attitude. And with all the guys being knocked out, that position's probably been knocked out the most, if any. And to be able just to show up and coach the next guy and get him to believe that he can play play to that ability and get him to play to that ability, that's a sign of an outstanding coach, and that's what I feel like we have in Coach Mo.
Jeff, where does your long snapper position stand going forward?
Yeah, we're going to get Bryce Bernard back this week. He unfortunately found out on Friday that he was not going to be able to go. And so obviously everybody understands Andrew Beardall is one of our long snappers that tore his ACL in preseason. And at the time we had two long snappers, he and Ian Deneen. And so we went and got Bryce out of the video stand. So Bryce Bernard was one of our student filmers for the video department up until about maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so whenever Andrew Beardall went down, we looked up there, pulled Bryce down out of the video, and got him a physical and all his tests. 3 days later, he was out there and he snapped. I believe he snapped in the Seminole game. And so he's been consistent for us in practice, and we've had some good opportunities against Notre Dame. Unfortunately, due to things that happened, he was not able to go. And so our backup for the long snapping behind him was Antonio Greer, who's done a good job as kind of an emergency guy. The NFL has to do that sometimes with linebackers or receivers or something. And whenever it was time for us to go to Greer, he was out of the game. And I felt Ian obviously he's got to execute better than that. It kind of reminded me of my golf game. I can get out there some days on that first tee and hit one wide right, and then I get my breakfast ball, my mulligan, and it goes wide right, then I know it's going to be a long day. And I go ahead and apologize to my golf partners, and I kind of felt that way for Ian a little bit. I just had a bad day and decided to just kind of punt on offense the rest of the game once we set the second one sailing.
Jeff, what kind of film are you watching to supplement what is non-existent game film with this current FAU team? And in these situations, when you have a team with a new coach, no game film exists, do you feel that you're coming behind the 8 ball in that regard?
Yeah, it's difficult. It really reminds you of a lot of openers during this situation when you have new coaches and no film. So obviously we're watching a lot of Oregon tape for Oregon's offense under Coach Taggart and Oregon's defense under Coach Levitt. And then we're watching FAU for personnel. Now the interesting thing is, we've got 6 coaches on our staff that were all at FAU last year. And, so probably the biggest challenge of all that is, we've had to change all of our signals this week in practice because the coaches that actually signaled in the offense and the defensive plays at FAU are still on their staff, right? So that's forced us to completely, and we actually started a week ago completely overhauling all of our signals just to make sure we give our guys a chance. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult. You don't really know exactly what they're going to do. You just have to kind of trust the film and have your guys ready to play.
Is it an advantage that you saw all of Taggart's or what he did at Florida State during your time at Clemson?
Not really. I think they had other offensive coordinators at the time that were doing things. I think you take a little bit. I mean, once you get into spread, everybody's kind of doing the same things, right? And there's not a huge discrepancy once you kind of start spreading out what you're doing. I think a lot of it, every coach, right? It deals with your personnel that you have on your new team. Like, what are your strengths on your team? And that's kind of what you're going to work within your overall playbook around the strengths that you have. And, we don't exactly know that because they haven't played yet. So, we just have to prepare for a lot of different things.
Coach, you can comment this, and I totally understand. Did it ever get to a point where you were close to having to cancel a game because you didn't have enough offensive linemen who could rest?
We have not gotten to that point yet. It was just to the point where the guys that were maybe have to go in the game just got here as true freshmen. But we have not, thank goodness, we haven't been to a point yet where we had too many at one position. It just, has been a lot of key guys. But, you do have some younger walk-ons and stuff that just showed up that can give you a little bit of depth.
Aside from a couple of Clemson FSU games, do you go back to Willie Taggart any kind of pass with him?
He came, I've met him a couple of times. He came up to Clemson when he was at Oregon. He came over to Clemson, he and Tony Elliott, a good friend of mine that I work with at Clemson, or good friends and coaching, have a good coaching relationship. So I met him when he came up and was really impressed. Talked to him just a little bit, and that's really the only interaction that I've had with Coach.
Bryce Bernard sounds kind of fascinating. Was he a high school player?
Yeah, he was a high school long snapper. I believe his father is a high school football coach, so he has a background. And I didn't know anything about it. We were not able to have our walk-on tryout this spring, and then because we ended up canceling spring ball for the first day, we're supposed to have the second practice, and then we could not have a walk-on tryout during fall camp because everybody was at home due to COVID, and we couldn't bring 50 guys in for that. And so the story got to me as we got in the staff meeting, and literally we had one guy left, and school had already started, so you couldn't go bring in guys from the portal or whatever. So you're kind of locked in. And whenever I brought it up in the staff meeting, Phil Kane, our director of video, said, "Hey, one of my student managers snapped in high school, and he was going to come out for walk-on tryout." And he said, "I think he's pretty good." And I said, "All right, well, tell him he's on the team." I didn't even watch him snap. We immediately got him a physical. The most fascinating part of the whole story is we actually got it approved through compliance that if he wanted to, and if we wanted him to, he could come snap at the beginning of practice like the snappers do, and then go up in his full pads and video the rest of practice and still get paid to be a student video guy. But we decided we could find another video guy. But that was pretty funny. I thought about it. But the best part of that whole story was I told the team once I got it approved that he was coming out, and I talked to him that day at practice. At the end of practice, I made a statement to the team that we're bringing out a new long snapper, and he's in that tower right there. And the whole team just gave him a standing ovation. He was waving like the Pope, down from the tower. So I just like, man, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, this is unbelievable. But hey, luckily we had a long snapper in our film stand, and we are sending out an email, and we think we might have located another student on campus that has snapped in the past that we can get out to practice just to have an emergency. In the year of COVID, it's not just injuries, right? It's the test and all those things that you find out on the day before the game before you get on the bus that you're a little limited. And the specialist position is one that usually you have 2 kickers, 2 punters, 2 snappers, right? Because very rarely do those guys get injured. And this has been a different year for that.
So God bless him. He took the day for the sake of the team.
He did. That's exactly right.
You mentioned emergency long snapper. Just wanted to see if there was any update on Antonio.
Yeah, no update right now. They're still with us, and kind of day to day. See if they'll be ready to play this weekend. All right, good. Okay, thank you. Y'all have a good week.